Добро пожаловать на добавочное шоу «Радио Веры». Меня зовут Борис Рейтман. Идея этой программы в том, что поднять темы, которые чисто западные, которые интересуют западную публику и, в частности, людей, которые, может быть, давно приехали в Канаду, в США, и они читают и поглощают медиа на английском языке, но тем не менее они знают русский язык. И поэтому моя идея в том, чтобы создать такое добавочное шоу, в котором мы разбираем западные темы. Но настолько мало в моем личном кругу людей, говорящих по-русски, которые занимаются западными темами, что иногда мне приходится приглашать англоговорящих людей на наш эфир. И в этом случае случилось именно так. Сегодня будем говорить по-английски. Я надеюсь, что наши слушатели все понимают английский. Если вы не понимаете английский, вы можете в YouTube включить subtitles и автоматический перевод на русский язык через subtitles. Но я думаю, что большинству наших слушателей это не понадобится, потому что английский все знают на каком-либо уровне. Все знают английский сегодня в мире. Это язык номер один. Поэтому я хочу пригласить сейчас моего коллегу Эндрю Джей Старр, с которым мы начнем беседовать по-английски. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Privyet. Unfortunately, I don't know the Russian language, so I do apologize to your esteemed guests and people that are tuning in and will replay this. I guess my folks left 100 years too early, so otherwise I would know. So,
Andrew, that's not necessary because sometimes we actually do have some shows that we do in English.
Oh, okay, terrific. Good deal. Well, it's a pleasure being here for sure. Thank you. Spasiba.
Yes. Sorry, my browser was frozen for a second.
Oh, okay.
It's all back. It's all good. So, Andrew, can you maybe tell a little bit about yourself to our listeners who have not seen you before? You are connecting to us from Albania, right?
That's correct. Right. So I'm here looking at residential real estate situations. There's a lot of activity going on in this country. So I'm in the port city of Durres, Durres. It's the one of the largest ports in the Balkans. It's outside of the European Union, and this is a NATO country. And so a lot of things are happening. In the port of Durres is being renovated by an outlet out of Dubai, the same company that did the Porto Montenegro in the country of Montenegro. They're trying to turn this around from being more of industrial type shipping to yachts, pleasure, leisure, those types of things to spruce up the tourism industry. So Dubai's here. And then here's a little fun one. Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was here not too long ago scouting for real estate as well. He's trying to buy something called Sazan Island, Sazan Island, to the south of here. And so he's looking to put in a real estate development with a curious fellow by the name of Rick Grinnell, who was in the American Intelligence Service. This is all just mainstream stuff that people can Google or Yandex or DuckDuckGo. None of this is, none of this is out of the box type stuff. So there's a lot of real estate intrigue here. Unfortunately, they did not have a very good summer season. It was not as strong as the year before. So we're trying to figure out why it tapered off. Perhaps the pricing here got a little bit too strong compared to neighboring Greece and Italy. Maybe they priced themselves out of being competitive. They like to say, well, there were a lot of sporting events in Europe. There was the big European football soccer tournament, and of course the Olympics in Paris that perhaps pulled some attention away from other destinations. But I'm not really buying those explanations. So I happen to be involved with real estate, and that's part of the reason why I am here. And I have the connections to this country.
How much does a one-bedroom apartment go in where you are, Albania?
Right. So brand new construction, let's say 50,000 US. If you want a sea view, times that by 2, figure a little bit more than that. You can get first row Adriatic Sea for not much more than 100,000, which is not.
How much apartment in Vancouver is?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, to compare how much a one-bedroom apartment goes for in Vancouver. About $500,000 these days.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. Yeah. I mean, so they have 2 seas here. You have the Adriatic, and then to the south, the Ionian begins in the port city of Saranda. So, yeah, the prices are low. And a lot of people are here because they speculate that if Albania joins the European Union, like some of its neighbors, then prices will increase simply because they'll be part of a larger economic bloc. Right, we saw this happen in Slovenia, then Croatia, which is now fully part of the Schengen area and Eurozone. Then there's speculation that Montenegro is next. And after Montenegro, who's left? Albania. So that's why a lot of these real estate speculators are in town and they are trying to buy stuff up. And that's what I'm trying to do as well. And now that the summer season is coming to a close, that's when the fun starts with the wheeling.
Pause again for a moment. I don't know if it's me or the app or your side. I'm going to try to restart my system. Oh, you're back. For a moment I saw you move.
Not sure if we're back.
Yeah, can you hear me, Andrew? I can see you and I can hear you.
All right, Boris.
Yeah, I can see you and I can.
Oh, cheers. Okay, I guess it must have been on my end that the internet. Yeah, the internet's a little bit spotty, and that's one of the other issues with being, in a place that's still developing, is that the infrastructure is not always pristine. So there is that. Although curiously, the telecom here is owned by Vodafone of Germany, so you would expect a little bit better, but I guess Vodafone isn't necessarily Vodafone everywhere you go.
That's great, but let's actually go to some of the hot topics these days.
Let's do it.
That are happening these days. And what is interesting to me is what's going on with Elon Musk. Are you in the loop? Are you following the news?
I have been. And Elon is a curious character because he's often the wealthiest person on the planet. Sometimes someone will dethrone him for a few weeks, but he is officially the wealthiest person on the planet. He is certainly an interesting character with an interesting background. And I think he does a little bit more than just serving as a shock jock, right? He's not just a Howard Stern or an old-fashioned Rush Limbaugh before he passed away. I think that Elon certainly, he does things deliberately. I don't think it's just impulse. But I don't know, what do you make of Elon Musk?
Yeah, let's go through the most recent 3 events I can think of about Elon Musk. Is his exchange, if we can call it that, with Maduro.
Right.
He's looking of his system, his X and his Starlink in Brazil. And third, he's starting an antitrust case against advertisers. So I think these are the 3 most recent things. Maybe I missed something about him. Oh yeah, and there is also this is somewhat old now. Half a year ago he reposted a tweet about a Jewish anti-Semitism conspiracy. He reposted a tweet. You remember that?
I do. What was the story behind that again? Refresh my memory. That was interesting. He got into some sort of hot water over that.
Well, some idiot posted the Jewish conspiracy, anti-Jewish conspiracy, that apparently the Jews are trying to take over the world by replacing white people with Jews, which is ridiculous because I'm Jewish, but I'm not white. I mean, that's
Right.
already the face of it ridiculous. But anyway, so he reposted this tweet and said he speaks the truth, or something like that.
Yeah. Is he? So then, here's what I want to know: is Elon Musk in charge of his own Twitter account? That's the first thing. I think he is. Okay, that's the first thing.
And then what happened is that we tried to place. He went to Israel after that, shortly. I mean,
right.
There was a lot of noise about this, and he went to Israel to show solidarity with Israel. He watched the tapes of October 7. I mean, so somehow this, like, many Jews came out and said he's not an anti-Semite. But now we have a series of more recent cases. First, there's a fourth element. He is an active supporter from Trump, and he has been offered a position at the government, which he gladly accepted.
Right. Yeah, he wants to be like Javier Milei, right? And cutting down the bureaucracy, the Department of Efficiency, or whatever it was. I got the gist of that. You know, sometimes you have to ask yourself, Boris, are these people for real? Right? I mean, you have to ask yourself, is it a joke? Are they trying to just get clicks? Are they egomaniacs? Or is there some veracity to this sort of thing? And I don't think it's all a joke. I think there is some truth there. There's some pravda, I guess.
I don't think he's joking at all.
You don't think he's joking at all? Okay. No, you don't think he's joking. Okay. Then he's not. That's fine. Yeah, okay.
But I just think what he's doing is inappropriate, especially he's trying to get into politics. But that's not my biggest issue with him. My biggest issue with him is the antitrust case he has against the advertisers. I mean, so he says that the advertisers colluded to boycott him, and the reason is that the ads were showing up near some anti-Semitic posts, that because his platform wasn't filtering anything, and there were anti-Semitic posts on Twitter. And the advertiser showed beside them because that's the algorithm. It would just show it. And then they said, well, IBM said, Coca-Cola said, I can't remember the names of companies, but many. We don't want our advertisements beside this. And they pulled, then they colluded together to boycott the platform. And then if you remember what he did after this, he went on air, I don't know, it was on some show, and he told them to go.
Right.
Remember, yes?
F themselves, right.
So, maybe it was just posturing or something. But now this has gotten much more serious. Now this is not just talk. Now he's started an antitrust case. He has a CEO who is leading this effort, and he supports this. And isn't he supposed to be pro-free market?
Right.
So the antitrust case says that if you are, it's very vague in the way that it's defined. It says that, well, if you are cornering too much of the market, then basically we're going to penalize you. There's no definition of what is too much, what is too little. And in principle, on the free market, the government should not be interfering.
Right.
For example, in this case, this is what libertarians actually like. It's all about the contract. It's all about the contract terms, right? And You vote with your money. You support this. You libertarians are supposed to support this idea that you vote with your money. And now the advertisers say, we don't want this kind of platform. We want a filtered platform. We want the old Twitter. The old Twitter that was filtering the content. It wasn't, anything you want, you can post. So we are leaving, or implement an algorithm that can filter out just some of the ugliest posts.
Sure.
Right. But don't show us it's there. Let's change the content. But they are saying that doesn't work for us. Financially, economically doesn't work for us. We don't want none of this. Now he said, well, that's not good enough. I don't want to compete on the free market. I want to use the government to penalize you. About this. You understand? So he is no longer using the free market system. He is basically using a fascist technique. So he is forcing the government to using the government as a tool to penalize his competitors, his opponents.
Yeah. No, that's a real good point. You look at someone like Elon Musk. Was he ever a creature of the free market? Right. I mean, he gets a lot of government contracts, they say, for different companies that he has. So is that free market? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That depends on how you want to look at these things. So that's the first point. But I think a fellow like an Elon Musk, he's more of an opportunist in that respect. But I agree with you. I agree with the point that you're getting at. So now that he's done something where his advertisers are boycotting him, he's crying foul. Whoa, that's not okay. So he's running to Uncle Sam to right those wrongs. I get your point, and it's a good point. It's a really good point. And I'm surprised more people are not calling him out on this.
Yeah. Well, I think when he, made this statement, this swear statement publicly, I think people kind of liked it. He was brave,
Right.
But now, I think maybe they're connecting that with this. But I think this is very good. This is now the government is involved, and I think that the antitrust laws should be repealed because they're not objective.
Right.
There's no definition when you're crossing that line. There's no definition. For example, there was an antitrust case with Microsoft when Microsoft was having a great web browser, Internet Explorer. Yes, it was hard to code for it, and people had to code twice: once for the Explorer, once for whatever was Netscape, and then Firefox. But if you just would stick to, let's say, one platform, Internet Explorer, it had much more features, and it was better for using. It was better for developing. But they were slapped that you're too good. You have a Windows platform and you have a browser platform. No, you cannot do that. You have to basically, we will penalize you. You're taking too much of the market share, and it's terrible. So now the Internet Explorer disappeared.
Right. And, so on antitrust, when people think antitrust, they think of two big examples, right? And that are real popular in American history: the breaking up of Standard Oil, right? John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil, and AT&T. And lots of people, even free market people, say, "Oh, it was great when the government broke up the American Telephone and Telegraph." What was 1984 was the final breakup. And it was even good for the shareholders because then they got shares of New York Telephone and New England Telephone and Bell South and California Bell, and right, because the one share of AT&T became many different shares of these broken up regional telephone companies. So there's that argument that's out there, even among those that should know better, and they use that as a case. And they say, well, you see, this was an incident where the government did the right thing, even if they shouldn't have had the power in the first place. So how does one combat that kind of reasoning? By just saying, hey, it does two wrongs, even if the outcome is good, it should have never been down that way?
Is it actually good? I don't know about the AT&T case, but I know that Standard Oil, Rockefeller's oil, was an invention that was unprecedented because nobody knew how to dig out the oil, how to process the oil, and he basically started a whole new era. But now he's been, the Hulk. I mean, that was his like children or ancestry, right? It wasn't his himself. Already. But anyway, he started this company, and this company should be celebrated for unlocking a huge potential in nature, which we basically didn't know about. So we knew about theoretically, we couldn't use it. And now we all depend on oil. And when he was doing this, when he was starting the original Rockefeller, there were many people who were digging out oil. He was just one of them, but he came up with a more efficient way to deliver it. He when the normal oil depleted and basically everyone gave up because there was no clean oil, he started to find dirty oil, basically, kind that was really stinky, and nobody wanted to use it. So he hired some chemists privately, kind of like very like advanced. I don't know if they were Nobel laureates, but really like hardcore chemists. Paid them privately for 2 years or so to try to convert this useless oil to something that can be used. And they succeeded. And everyone thought he will fail. And that's how he became rich, because he unlocked a huge potential in nature. So, and then if someone else wants to compete with this, compete on the same grounds, right? Come up with some other alternative energy, or, duplicate the effort. Duplicate the effort if you think they can do it. But if he is solving the problem for everyone, why penalize him? Let's thank him. We should thank the oil company. We thank them because so far it's the most convenient and most efficient way. There's all these electric cars, and speaking of Musk, there's the Tesla and there's other electric cars. But for many people, it doesn't make any sense. If you have a house and you have a charger in the house, and you can leave your car overnight in your own backyard, in your garage charging, okay, that works. But most people who live in apartments, how does it work? Where to put the car? There's only so many stops. And if you're driving far away, well, you have to stop for 5 hours to charge your car. So this is still not clear if there's going to be like a solution that will convenient, of course, to everyone for electric cars, and it will actually, based on the market force, replace the oil car. I don't see it happening yet. It might be happening. Actually, there was a project in Israel where they wanted to make an electric car where the battery gets swapped out, and you just get a new battery. But that never happened. I don't know why. It was led by former CEO of SAP branch in Israel, Shai Agassi. He's a guy who has connections, has the money, but that has not panned out. So I wonder why. Maybe the market is just not there.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying. And look, I agree with you. I don't want to empower the state for sure to limit achievements and to take away from the fruits of someone's genius, someone's labor, because suppose I come up with something, you come up with something, and it becomes wildly popular. And then the state is going to use its coercive powers to say, okay, you've had enough fun, Mr. Starr, Mr. Reitman. That's enough out of you. So I understand that. So I presume then antitrust should not be certainly applied, period. It shouldn't exist. So same thing with someone that has a patent on pharmaceutical drugs, right? That too. So should patents ever expire?
I support patents. I myself have 2 patents.
Right.
But I do think they should expire.
They should.
I think they expire every 14 years. I might be wrong, or 17 years. It's very long. And the idea of the patent is it gives the first advantage to someone who invented the product, right? First market advantage to somebody who invented the product. But at the same time, it's possible someone else invents the same product. You can't lock nature. The invention is something that's out there in nature. Someone else can think of it. You cannot say, let's say somebody invents the printing press, right? Well, it is an invention, but it's possible that someone else will invent the same idea. If it didn't exist, someone else would have invented it, right? Let's say 20 years later or 3 years later. It doesn't matter. Actually, it's curious that most inventions happening at the same time in two different parts of the world, because the world is ready for this invention. I think that was radio or telephone, or was like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Marconi, I think, was one of the gentlemen.
And Tesla, not the Tesla car. Nikola Tesla, yes, at the same time. And
that's a good point.
It's debatable who did it first, actually. It's debatable who invented it first.
No, it's a good point, because there has to be an incentive for people to create and innovate, right? If they cannot recoup, they're like a big pharmaceutical company, if they cannot recoup the hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars they'll pour into developing a new drug, they're not going to do it. It's just that simple.
There is also the fact that the FDA holds up the market release to the market for 10 years. Like, say you invent something new, right? In the FDA or whatever equivalent in the country where it's being invented and trying to be distributed, is being held up by bureaucracy, paperwork, and so on. So during these 10 years, if there's no patent, anyone else can also. 10 years is a long time, Someone else can do it as well.
It is. Right, and certainly it's an extension of property rights. So it's almost the same as saying, well, you've enjoyed too much of a monopoly over your piece of land, over your house, so we have to curtail it. You've had it for too long. So I do understand it's not apples and oranges, the analogy that I'm making, but property comes in many different forms, right? There's intellectual property, there's real estate property, there's music. You create a piece of music or literature. I think after a certain period of time, the copyright on literature does expire. I think it goes into the so-called public domain after, what is it, 70 years, 80 years, whatever it is.
You can't patent Mozart, or you can't copyright Mozart. It's everybody's now. But Andrew, let's move forward, because we do have a list of topics that I wanted to cover today.
By all means.
So since we're still on Musk, there's also a case with Musk with Maduro. And people don't know, I'm just going to summarize this, is that Musk accused Maduro to be a dictator and having not really like being elected, but representing the will of the people. Then Maduro invited him to a boxing match or something like that, and man to man, yes. And Musk said, all right, I accept, but if I win, you resign, right? You resign, and if I lose, I'll give you a free ticket to Mars.
I love it. It's great. It reminds me of the old-fashioned dueling, when you would have two kings or two dukes in medieval Europe that would want to joust each other. It was it's fun to see that, a little bit of the old-fashioned dueling even that took place in the United States in the late 19th century, late 18th, early 19th century dueling. It's cool. They should do it. They should just do it. It'd be fun.
No, they won't do it. But with this antitrust case, I lost my respect to Musk. But
okay,
this particular thing, that was brave of him to do it, and this particular thing I applaud. Now let's talk about the situation in Brazil. So Brazil has asked, to our listeners who don't know, Brazil has asked to block Twitter, right? To block some Twitter accounts, and these Twitter accounts belong to people who, just like similar to January 6th take over the Capitol, some people, there was a similar incident 2 years ago in Brazil. There was, I can't remember the name, Bolsonaro or something.
Right, Bolsonaro, you're right.
Yeah. So this guy basically took the example of the January 6th and Trump, and he declared that, actually it was me who won the election. And then there's people who tried to storm, and they did storm the government buildings. So now Brazil says we want these Twitter accounts to be blocked. And then to this, Musk says, no, I won't block them. So first, what do you think of just this part? Do you think Brazil is the Brazilian government does have a merit? Because first of all, do you agree that January 6th was unconstitutional behavior and people who participated in January 6th should be penalized? And similarly, people in Brazil who did this should be penalized for taking over a government building. And then, is it reasonable for the Brazilian government now to demand this, that their accounts should be blocked?
It's a tough call. I mean, if we go with the official story, right? If we just go with the official narrative, sure, governments have a right in their interest to protect their own legitimacy and authority. That's assuming the official story is correct and is true. I don't think the official stories are correct or true. And I don't mean that the conspiracy theorists are right. As far as my understanding of what happened January 6th, there are a lot of unanswered questions. For example, there were people that were let into the Capitol Hill area by the Capitol Hill police. There were also a lot of people there that I don't think knew the full extent of what was going on and were there just thinking it was some sort of a gathering of people that were a little bit too excited about Donald Trump. That could have also been the case with Jair Bolsonaro and the situation in Brasilia, Brazil. So, but then there's also the concept of law of guilt by association, right? Where I'm driving a car, my friend goes out, he robs a bank. I don't realize that he's robbing a bank. He gets back into my car. I'm still culpable under the law, right? So there's also that component to it, which makes it even more complicated. So,
okay, so shouldn't then Brazil do its own policing? Why does it need to go to
sure.
Musk? If they know who these people are,
right?
Put them in jail. If they are not in Brazil, then they're not in Brazil. But can they actually go and block media?
Look, I don't like the idea at all. Do they have that authority? They do because they're doing it, right?
Well, let's say not in a dictatorial state. Let's say Brazil was something like the United States.
United
States, during recent 4 years, we did have claims that the U.S. government required some accounts to be blocked and so on. And does the government have this right to go to a publisher and say, no, this you cannot publish?
No, that's easy. I don't even need to think about that. The answer to that is no, no, and no. The only exception I can think of would be incitement to violence or advocating something that is clearly criminal. So somebody that is publishing a manual on how to kill people, murder people, that has been ruled to be not constitutionally protected.
Right. That makes sense.
Sense. Otherwise, I could say something like, well, I think it would be great for Canada to join the United States, right? Peacefully, voluntarily, but people get bent out of shape about that. And then the government of the United States says, Mr. Starr, we don't like that kind of speech. You're done. That's not okay. That's totally fake in my eyes. And certainly I would like to believe that the courts in the United States would rule in my favor, that I have every right to say that Canada should be a part of the United States. There's nothing illegal about that. Inciting violence is always a different situation. But okay, so to try to answer the questions.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
But we cannot spend too long on each point.
Right.
But then the next thing that happened is that Brazil completely blocked Twitter, and there's a fine of $6,000. If I might be mistaken on the number, but $6,000.
Sure.
If you're caught using reading Twitter, let's say by VPN or something like that. And the other thing that happened is that they wanted to the Starlink system of Musk. Starlink is the internet thing through the satellite, to stop working in Brazil. And first, Musk and his Starlink said, no, we won't do this. We will continue to operate. But then they backed down and said, okay, we will stop operating in Brazil. So in the end, you cannot. This is what many libertarians don't understand. The crypto enthusiasts don't understand. You can technology. You can have the most amazing system, but you will not be able to use it to beat force like a gun, a rocket, a tank.
That's right. Because all contracts are only as good as their participants, right? Contracts are there for the divorce and for when things don't go according to plan, and constitutions and legal codes are essentially contracts. And so whatever the Constitution of Brazil says, right, they had a military dictatorship. My understanding was up till 1985. I think their first free elections would have been in 89. So relatively recently, whatever their current constitution says, I'm sure includes freedom of the press and speech and things of that nature. I'm sure there's quite a bit of wording behind that, but really, who cares when they're doing what they're doing vis-a-vis X, Twitter, and Starlink? Those are just words, right? If they're not going to honor whatever the text of their constitution says.
Well, that's a general libertarian position. Everything is a contract. I don't think it's really a contract, because it's not the issue of free market. It's a foundation for free market. You need to have a government foundation on which you can have contracts. But this is not really a contract. This is the government appointed by the citizens of the country, so that they create a safe environment for people to deal with each other by contracts. And then it's not just because if you break a contract, there's just a penalty. You can break a contract. There is usually some kind of penalty you have to pay, because usually every contract has early termination clause. There is no such thing that pertains to government. There's no such thing. We know we have this in our constitution, but you know what? In this case, we're gonna ignore it. There is no penalty for this. It just says, well, you know what? This is a rule, but if the government decides to ignore it, it has to pay a fine to someone who has been offended, suffered as a consequence. It's just a different kind of thing. And maybe we can come back to this when it comes to libertarians, but I think that's what I have on Musk, except there's this thing we already touched upon, that he interviewed with Donald Trump, and he's all gaga about him. He is just like Trump. He is against the open borders. He says we have a border for the United States. People are coming in, and they're the wrong kind of people, just like Trump. And then also he is, this is something I don't agree with. I am a supporter of open borders. And also he gladly accepted a bureaucratic position in the White House, which is it's concerning. But actually, do you think he will be able to do a good job? Do you think he will be able to get rid of some, let's say, even like 30% of regulations without adding another 30% regulations, which is what he said. There are too many regulations could be repealed. I think he said that, which I agree with. All the regulations should be repealed, not some, all of them.
Trying to get rid of regulations in the United States is not easy. I don't think that a president can do as much as we would. They can do quite a bit with executive orders, where they can rescind the edicts of previous presidents. That for sure is a possibility. But to usurp the powers of Congress and their powers of oversight is not so easy. There's a vast machinery in the United States, a vast bureaucratic machinery. So I don't see how much can really be done. A lot of this is rhetoric. It feels good. It's a lot of red meat, as they say. So that's essentially what I think is going on, it would require having a Congress to back a lot of this up. So there would need to be a Republican Congress, right? The House of Representatives and the Senate would need to okay a lot of this. The Supreme Court probably would. So there's that. You need a little bit more than just the executive.
Well, it's interesting that when he was on Bill Maher show, Musk, he said that he supports regulations. He said we need regulations for safety. He said that when he was doing his SpaceX rocket, he had a whole room filled with bureaucratic paperwork. These represented the regulations they had to pass to be able to do this rocket. And he said, yeah, I hated this, but at the same time, I think it's necessary, or something like that.
Right.
So now you appoint this kind of guy to get rid of regulations. He's supposed to represent the free market. This is the guy who is using the antitrust. You know, we live in an interesting time where what's actually happening is just funny. It's funny if it wasn't so sad.
I see your point. The point is that Elon Musk wants to get rid of regulations, yet he's using regulations to fight his own battles. And the irony is not lost on him. No, because it's just, but isn't that also a very human thing? Many of us humans are inherently hypocritical people, but once we become aware of these things, isn't it incumbent upon us to change and to break away from that hypocrisy and to be more consistent? Right? Isn't that part of the whole essence of life?
I completely agree. I am a supporter of free will, and anyone can change. Anyone can.
Yes.
But
yes.
When they don't, you do you do have to form an opinion about this person, right? You can say you did something bad, but because you can change in the future, I'm not going to basically lose my respect to you. You're still a good guy. You just made a little mistake. You're still a good guy. And maybe in the future you'll correct yourself. No, you have to really actually see what people do and judge them on their actions.
Right. Certainly.
Let's keep moving. I have somewhat related thing is the story of Pavel Durov, which is also a person who has a huge media platform, Telegram. I mean, you use this extensively. I think it's very convenient messenger, probably the best in terms of usability. Would you say that?
I love Telegram. I'm a big fan of Telegram. For sure. I think Telegram is great. I know it's not super secure. I know it's centralized. I don't know Pavel Durov. I certainly have a little bit of understanding of who he is. I don't understand why the authorities in France decided to go after him when they did. I mean, we know the official story, why it is they went after him, because they think that he's complicit in his app, Telegram, in facilitating lots of illegal activities that apparently proliferate Telegram. Fine. Okay. That's a bit of a dangerous precedent, though, right? Because they're not hauling in Mark Zuckerberg and his WhatsApp, for example.
Yeah.
And for sure, it's not illogical to think that illegal activity does happen on WhatsApp. I'm sure it does.
Well, you know, it's interesting that, first of all, some people maybe don't know, but my specialty is encryption. And so when you use Telegram, many people think that Telegram is secure. Well, the group chats are not end-to-end encrypted, and one-on-one chats are not end-to-end encrypted unless you specifically do a secure chat mode, which nobody does. Very few people do. And even if you do secure chat mode, you still have to compare keys, which nobody does, because you have to use a second communication channel to compare these encryption keys. Anyway, it's all complicated, but the point is 99.9% of communication on Telegram happens in a not end-to-end encrypted fashion. What does that mean? That means that whatever you type in Telegram, it goes encrypted from your phone or your device to the Telegram servers. That part is encrypted. And And that's the same happens if you say using web browser and you're going to your bank interface and you're managing your bank account. That's the same kind of encryption. But on the server on Telegram server, it's arriving there, and they have means to decrypt this. They have means to see what's inside. Whether they do it, whether they don't, I'm going to answer this question in a moment. But the fact that they do have the means to see. The only time when there is no means to see what's going on in the communication is called end-to-end encryption. So from one end to the other end, it's encrypted, and whatever is midpoint doesn't know what's going on. But that's not the case with Telegram. It is the case with Signal app, for example. Everything in Signal is encrypted, including the group chats. In WhatsApp, I think group chats are not encrypted either, but I might be wrong here. Anyway, so now the question is, well, do they monitor? Do they monitor what's going on? They have the means to monitor. And in June 2020, Pavel Durov wrote something in Russian. I'm just going to quickly read this, and I'm going to translate this.
Thank you.
Наш опыт работы в десятках стран на протяжении последних 6 лет показывает, борьба с терроризмом и право на тайну личной переписки не исключают друг друга.
So when he said that we can at the same time filter the traffic and find the terrorist activity while keeping private communication. I don't know how this can be done, except that they would be just like looking for keywords in messages. So no one physically reads, no human being reads these messages that are going on through the server. But let's say if the keyword, there is a keyword, bomb, right? That gets flagged. But very few messages has that information, maybe 1%. And also, I'm going to read another part. It's from the same text.
За это время были усовершенствованы методы обнаружения и удаления экстремистской пропаганды, и теперь командой Telegram пересекаются десятки тысяч попыток распространить публичные призывы к насилию и террору ежемесячно.
And then here he says again. So we have a team in Telegram that reviews messages and finds the terrorist activity. So they have means to monitor it. And now I think the case against him in the French court that they are not doing a good job about it or something like that, and that they actually facilitate terrorist activity or some sort of bad activity. Does it sound like what you heard?
Right. Yeah, I mean, so that's the situation. I mean, there's no way they're going to stick Pavel Durov in prison in France for 10 years. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I don't see that being the case. But as far as their ability to moderate what goes on in Telegram, I mean, what are they supposed to do? What exactly do the authorities want them to do? To have a live moderator, to have an AI moderator, to automatically delete certain phrases? I'm trying to understand what it is that the authorities want Telegram to do.
Well, I think they just want admission of guilt. They don't want
anything.
They want an admission of guilt. They want to control him. And they want to make him an example, a poster child of this situation. And then they want to go after similar people who are successful. And this is, I don't think it's just related to chat. They want basically anyone who is successful, they come to him. If you read Atlas Shrugged, you remember how they came to Reardon. And they said, we want your Reardon metal. We want the formula. We want the patent. And if you don't give it to us, we will blackmail you. So the same thing here. They are saying, this is basically altruism. They are saying that you're too successful, you're too good, you're good looking, and you're strong, and you have a lot of money. How come you're not getting a piece of this? How come you're gaining all this for yourself? You want a piece of this. You cannot be successful and free. You can be successful and enslaved by us. That's okay. You're enslaved by us. That's okay. We will leave you alone. That's my interpretation of what's going on. Of course, there's other things. Maybe it's an element. Maybe it's not 100%. Maybe it's an element.
But also there is some evidence came up that Durov actually came in many times to Russia, across the border to Russia. I don't know how strong this evidence is, but isn't he supposed to have like been banished from Russia, and he was seeking asylum, or basically Russia is not his friend, but now Russia is supporting him. Russian administration supporting him. And if you remember that, the post that I read in Russian, that's when he wrote shortly after he was banned in Russia. But after a while, we know that Russian administration is using Telegram. The Russian military is using Telegram. So is the Ukrainian military using Telegram. So he has created a platform, which is just like Musk. He says everything, anything goes, except, terrorism, right, or whatever. But wouldn't we say that the Russian military is a terrorist here? They attacked. It's equivalent of terror. They attacked. They kill people. What they did in some of these cities in Ukraine. This is war crime, right? So why is he not? What is this position? What is this misunderstanding of what is free speech? Don't you, as a member of the platform, have speech? You're giving your mouthpiece to ideas you don't support, right?
Right.
So that's you speaking pretty much, right? Because you created the venue. That means that anything comes out of this venue, basically you're allowing this to happen. You're spreading out bad ideas, evil ideas. You're helping these bad ideas to be spread. And I do not understand how these brilliant people can not understand this basic idea. I mean, it's true that because I read Ayn Rand, but I just think it's fairly trivial thing. Not many people get it. They keep talking about censure. Elon Musk says, I don't want to censure. That's not censure. Censure is the government says you cannot say this and that. But if it's your private platform, it's your speech, your free speech to choose what's going on in your platform. It's your platform.
That's correct.
Your thing.
That's correct. That's totally correct. If it's a private, non-government platform, it's a different set of rules, for sure. I'll give you a quick side note. So a long time ago, when I was at a state university as an undergrad, there was a situation where the student newspaper there that was funded by the school, right? They had their newsstands and they could have their print newspaper pretty much wherever they wanted on campus. That made sense, fine. But because it was state controlled, they could not deny others that had their own newspapers from presenting their own newsstands and their own print newspapers on campus. And that was supposed to be viewpoint neutral, right? So that's what happens at a so-called public government university in the United States. If it were private, that's a different situation altogether, right? There are Supreme Court cases that back this up. So there is a distinction between public and private. So I completely understand what you're describing. And then as far as Telegram is concerned, there is something that I've heard, which is another sidebar, and that is that France, being a NATO country, presumably would love to get backdoor keys to Telegram to see what's going on, to see what the Russian Federation, what the Kremlin is up to, what their propagandists are up to, and what their military assets are up to as far as their usage of Telegram. And I understand that. And I'm pretty confident that Russia is very concerned about what Pavel Durov is unloading as we speak. But maybe they're not. Maybe they already have that contingency plans. Who knows?
That's interesting your point. I didn't hear this before. I can only add that during the World War II, we had Alan Turing working on decrypting Enigma, which was the cipher used by Germans, right? And then because they were able to crack the code, it's considered, there's a theory that was
I don't know which is the dominant reason for winning the war, but that is a theory that they knew where the Germans' U-boats will be, and for this reason they couldn't win. But what happened here is that if Pavel is against Russia, right? He wants to fight this war, right? Shouldn't he just like volunteer help if he supports? Because Alan Turing was not part of the government, and he said, "No, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to use math for math's sake."
Sure.
But he didn't. He did support, but that was his government. He was patriotic to England. Pavel Durov is a guest. Actually, is he a citizen of France? I don't know.
I don't even know how he became, but I think in 2021 he naturalized as a French citizen. I don't know how he was able to pull that off. He also is a citizen of the United Arab Emirates, which is extremely hard to get their citizenship. I guess if you have enough money, things are not hard, or you have enough influence and power, things are not hard. So he's a citizen, right, of the Russian Federation, United Arab Emirates, the French Republic, and of course, you know, he has to have a St. Kitts and Nevis passport, which doesn't really do him a lot of good. A small country in the West Indies, right? I think it's $250,000, and presto, you get a passport there. It's a Commonwealth country, so there's some benefits, but not very much. I don't know why it is he chose to become French. That's a particularly odd thing. Look, if I believed in conspiracy theories, I would almost say that he did want to cooperate with NATO and said, I'm going to fly to France, go arrest me, make it look like you got me, right? So I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm not turning into Alex Jones. There's no tinfoil here, but it would almost lend one to believe something like that, right? Because then also, if he's in protective custody in France, and he really isn't, I believe they released him, but he's not allowed to leave the national territory of France, then maybe he could be protected from, I don't know, Russian double agents or something that are going to try to Novoshock him like they did people in England, allegedly, right, or probably really did. So, maybe he's concerned about the long arm of Russia. Maybe he'd be more scared of them than he would the West. I don't know. Although I'd be more afraid of the West than Russia, that's for sure. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it. I don't know what his politics are. Perhaps he's more of a libertarian and he wanted to keep Telegram a somewhat neutral platform. Don't know. But I don't think he can stay neutral for much longer.
Yeah. That's true. Well, we have only 2 minutes left. We shouldn't start a new topic, but maybe we can use these 2 minutes to just learn a little bit more about you, and you can tell us, like, you are now in Albania, but where do you normally live?
Right. So I spend a lot of my time in the city of Merida in Mexico. It's southeast Mexico, about 4 hours west of Cancun. So I spend a tremendous amount of time there. I also frequent Malta, and I have roots in Montreal. So the other part of Canada, Eastern Canada.
Okay.
I love Montreal. It's a fantastic city. I think it has still a tremendous amount of that old world charm that I just happen to love. And so
you speak several languages, right?
Oh, certainly, yeah. French being one of them, and so I like spending my time between those places. I like places that start with the letter M. So Montreal, Malta, Merida, Mexico. It's just a coincidence that M-lettered places seem to do it for me.
You have a connection with Israel, right?
Oh, certainly, yeah. I have relatives there, and I certainly am very close and empathetic and sympathetic to what's been going on in Israel. And it is emotional. It's emotional. And I understand the emotions are extraordinarily high, particularly what's been going on very recently. And I have to say, I have not been paying a lot of close attention to those stories because it is painful. It's very painful. And I don't know how it's going to get resolved. But yeah, most certainly, I have a tremendous amount of connections to Israel, and I certainly wish Israel, in particular, nothing but the best, because it is a beacon. I know it almost sounds like a cliche to say it, but it is. So,
Yeah.
without a peaceful, stable, prosperous Israel, I don't see good things happening in that part of the world. I mean, even Israel's enemies should be in favor of Israel, if that makes any sense. I mean, I know it sounds totally disingenuous and jingoistic, but if they understood things a little bit more clearly, they can hate Israel all they want. That's their right, unfortunately. But they should be secretly very much in favor of a powerful Israel. It's in their own interest, oddly
Do you
enough.
think there is a sizable, we have to finish, but do you think there is a sizable population in all of these countries that actually support Israel, but they can't say it, let's say in Iran?
Right.
A sizable population that just actually would come in support of Israel had the official position was different.
It's totally true. And I think a lot of folks in the UAE and the other GCC countries, they do know that maybe there's some political issues, but it's not tribal, it's not religious, it's not cultural. It's very much just there's a surface level of dispute. But you're right. Beneath the scenes, I mean, I've talked with a lot of people in different Gulf countries, and they don't dislike Israel at all. In fact, they have a lot of very favorable things to say off the record. Very favorable things. They would like to be more like Israel, oddly enough. And I'm talking about people that are in the positions of power in the Gulf, for sure. So, and there's a tremendous amount of admiration for us, the Jewish people. We're oddly enough, we're not hated. We're loved by our, Arab, call them brothers, cousins, if you want to go with the official mythology. I know you don't buy into that. I'm not, but I'm just saying.
Well, yeah. I do know the history, and I know the mythology. It has been my topic.
Right.
Let's save this conversation for next time. I do have a stream every Friday to our listeners also. Every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Vancouver time. That's the plan. And sometimes we'll have English guests, as we have today, because we were able to raise with Andrew very Western kind of topics that are rarely we have a chance to discuss on the main show that's at 8 a.m. And sometimes we'll have also Russian speaking guests. Andrew, I thank you for your time. It has been great. I'm glad to learn a little bit more about you, which I myself didn't know. And until next time, thanks.
Thank you.